Moncrief on News Talk.
Brought to you by Avant Money. Think you're getting the best value from your bank? Think again.
Now, speaking of the UK, this week the British media attention, much of it has been directed towards an alpaca. Following a positive test for bovine TB, an order came through to euthanise Geronimo, the alpaca, but then there was a petition and marches to save his life. We're joined on News Talk by Helen MacDonald from Alpaca Power in Gloucestershire, where Geronimo lives. Good afternoon, Helen.
Good afternoon. Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
And now, as I understand it, he came to you from New Zealand. How long has he lived with you for?
We imported him 4 years ago, Tuesday actually, just gone. So he's been here 4 years.
Right, okay. And when did he get this test?
So he had this test just shortly after arrival. It's a voluntary surveillance blood test that we were using in the UK. And unfortunately, it threw a positive result, which looks like was caused by the multiple injections of tuberculin that he had in the skin test in New Zealand.
Right. Okay. And why would he be injected with tuberculin?
Because it's the internationally recognised test for TB surveillance all around the world. And in his farm in New Zealand, they test all their alpacas and cattle every year. And they have done for 26 years. So there's no TB on that farm or in that vicinity, which is part of their eradication program, if you like. So we knew that he was perfectly healthy when he came. And then he had another skin test for export, again, because it's internationally recognised. And so he'd kind of had two injections close together. And then he had this blood test which measured it, measured the antibody response from his immune system. And unfortunately the UK government said, well, he must have disease then, so we're going to have to kill him.
Yeah, and now, as I understand it, he was tested twice.
Well, they agreed, first of all, they said it was a false positive, and they agreed to retest him. So we thought, yeah, that makes sense. That fits with the pattern and all the history that we have of him and what's gone on. So they agreed to retest him, but you'll never guess, they wanted him to have more tuberculin. So they did that, and they changed the interpretation so they could make him fail effectively. And this was really not what we wanted at the time, and we later found out that they already knew there was a problem with his test, and then they actually admitted that they'd changed the protocol to make the result positive a couple of months after that. So that's why I'm fighting, and have been for 4 years now, to try and get them to just accept the facts of the case, really.
Why would they want to get a positive result from this?
Well, I think, it's easier to kill an animal and get him off your desk and not worry about the lack of science surrounding what they did. And I think, they've never been able to produce any evidence to support priming and with his tuberculin injections and this test. And the British Alpaca Society have been asking to run trials, which we're willing to pay for the last 4 years, and DEFRA don't want to know. They're just saying, no, he must have disease, he must have gone, caught it in New Zealand, he has to go. And so this battle has just been going on and on and on.
Yeah, and any of the other alpacas on your property, any of them any health problems at all?
So we have, we've been here 15 years. We have 80 alpacas. No one on this farm has ever had a suspicion of TB. Geronimo lives with a group of alpacas that he's lived with since his arrival. None of them have ever shown any signs of TB, and DEFRA will not test those animals. He came in on the plane with 28 other animals, and DEFRA did eventually test them a year after they arrived, and they were all negative. So it's hard to fathom why they are insisting on killing this animal without a valid test now.
Yeah, can you get a private test done?
Well, it would be possible, except I would be breaking the law, and I could go to prison for 6 months for breaking the law. And George Eustace, the Environment Secretary, won't give me permission. And this is the crux, because if we have a valid test for camelids, and that's the blood test that he had, but without the tuberculin. So all we've been asking for the last 4 years is to test him and his companions with the correct test, and then let's look at the results and see what's going on. But they're not interested. They just want him dead.
Yeah, that's bizarre that it's against the law to pay for your own TB test.
Yeah, it's part of the legislation, and it only applies to the tuberculosis order for camelids and also cattle. So if you go to court, you can't get tests to put before the court to defend yourself. So they have this suspicion of disease 4 years ago. So they're saying, well, we've got the suspicion of disease. Any evidence you've put forward since is completely meaningless. So the fact that he's running around quite happily 4 years after, he's now he's 8.5 years old now, never had a day's illness in his life, didn't get TB in New Zealand, and yet here we are 4 years after that, and they're saying he has to die. It's just the most irrational, appalling behaviour of a government I've ever come across.
And Helen, do you have been to court, as I understand that didn't work out for you. Do you have any road left?
We went to court. We took them to judicial review, and then there's been some other appeals and things since. But they have a suspicion of disease in law, and the courts were looking at the law rather than the science, unfortunately. So legally, we hit the end of the road last week in the High Court, where they issued the warrant for Geronimo's slaughter. That took effect on the 5th of August and expires on the 4th of September. So we're only 1 week into this 30-day warrant period, and it's pretty stressful watching the gate while no one in government will contact you or talk to you or do anything. They're not even replying to legal letters that we sent on Monday. So it's the most stressful, horrific situation I find myself in. And it's only the people and the people who are supporting this keeping me going, really.
Yeah, well, Helen, we wish you well. Thanks very much for speaking with us today. That's Helen McDonald there, who runs Alpaca Power in Gloucestershire. You are listening to the Moncrief Show on News Talk. Back in a couple of minutes with the news.
Moncrief on News Talk.
Brought to you by Avant Money. Think you're getting the best value from your bank? Think again.